Well, I guess the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor of California can stop it. The pipeline has now continued to move forward, and it's looking like it's taking actions. So down in California, on the West Coast, let's find out what's happening right now on Fox News.
And welcome back, everyone. It's you live now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be with you as we continue to bring you some of the day's biggest top stories and headlines. Well, it has finally happened out in California, over a decade in the making, as oil has begun to flow from a controversial California pipeline system for the first time in more than a decade following a Trump administration order, despite state officials decrying the move. For more on this, let's go out live right now to Santa Barbara, California. That's where we find Fox News' William Lajeunesse with a breakdown.
Well, Mike, we're talking about 50,000 barrels of new oil coming online, and that is enough to provide fuel for hundreds of thousands of vehicles. Now, California hasn't built a new well since 1969 when they banned offshore drilling, but the rigs that you see behind me, those are in federal waters. Now, you'll see three rigs, actually, you'll see two, there's three rigs here, that Exxon developed in the 1980s. Now, I've been out on those platforms before a 2015 oil spill, which cut off production when the state shut down the sole pipeline that brought that oil to shore. Now, on Friday, however, President Trump used his authority to override the state and reopen the pipeline. Now, even though this oil does help keep refineries in California open, and that has been a priority of Governor Newsom, and it also reduces the state's reliance on riskier and dirtier foreign oil coming in thousands of miles from, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, from overseas, Governor Newsom opposes the opening, saying California will not allow Trump's political stunt to put California communities and environment at risk. So last year, some Hollywood celebrities led a rally against this project, and they dismissed claims by the new owner that the pipeline was safe.
They'll tell lies up the kazoo in order to justify drilling for oil at a time when we shouldn't be doing that.
It's got 1-inch wall thickness in the pipe, and the Trans-Alaska pipeline's only 5-inch. So 1-inch wall of steel, it's tremendously strong, and it's in great shape, and we're already flowing oil through it at a rate of 50,000 barrels a day.
Yeah, that's a lot of cars, Mike. So California plans on challenging the president's ruling, or basically using the Defense Protection Act to open this pipeline, because there are so many military bases here in California, about 34. Others are in Arizona and Nevada that also depend on California refineries for their oil, using the Defense Production Act to reopen that pipeline. California is going to challenge that by saying that the pipeline is partially encroaching on state land, and therefore the state has jurisdiction, so a federal judge may ultimately decide whether the oil continues to flow or not. Mike?
Well, I think that's a foregone conclusion, because when you get the military bases down there in California, and it secures the West Coast, and we have Russia right there, and a lot of adversaries right that come that way. We have to always control that. We need oil. We need that production. We need that security for our military and our western Pacific West flank for any adversary that try to come in. Because right now we can see the world is in a lot of upheaval, and a lot of people do not like the United States. So we have to always be prepared as a nation. So we need oil out there, and if the president is able to get the oil, which he has, and he can use old pipeline and then regenerate new pipeline to assist in its development of that oil for the West, not just the citizens with their vehicles, but primarily for government, DOT, Department of Transportation, the military, and the function, the bases down there that need to function in our infrastructure, and they need the oil. And they had this previously said in through policies and regulations and laws. Why not with the president? You don't think the government, the Congress, is going to vote on that in a positive way? The Senate, the judiciary, Supreme Court is not going to vote in that when it benefits the whole nation at large and the sovereignty of the nation. Of course, it's going to move in the right direction. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. I'd like to hear from you.
And William, does this move by the Trump administration move the needle at all for places like, of course, California, but also Arizona, like you mentioned, to maybe bring those prices down just a little bit at the gas pumps?
You know, the governor on one hand, you say supply demand, right? You put in more supply demand, you know, is mediated and prices technically go down. The governor's going to argue that the world price of oil is what it is and it's going to keep prices high. I think it is fair to say, however, that this, in fact, I know, that this oil helps keep refineries. California used to have 42 refineries. Now we're down to 7, right? And they're closing because there's not enough oil in the pipelines to keep the refineries open. So by putting more oil in the system, they've already said it will keep those refineries open. That's what the governor of Arizona and Nevada have been barking for because they're dependent on what California does. California is now importing gasoline from Korea. It imports 60% of its oil from overseas. So many people will go, wait a minute, there's a lot of oil right here. There's a lot of oil in this state, and yet the state, which was at one time one of the top oil producing states in the country, now, because it's run by Democrats, they don't want to put any oil at all because they believe in, you know, the climate change argument, and they want to basically get rid of it by 2035, gas-powered vehicles. So as a consequence, there's no oil in the system to keep those refineries open. That's what the governors are arguing in those two states.
Yeah, since, you know, like you said, we had so many refineries in the country that we had to evaluate and understand. We had 40 something, now we're down to 7, and these refineries changed the crude oil into oil to gas. We need that. We need them. We don't need to get rid of any more refineries for a nation this large. And so, quite naturally, people are going to fight against it, and all these people live in that fantasy world. You're going to need oil, you're going to need gas, and these refineries, we need the refineries that we already have in existence. We have 42, now we're down to 7. Come on, we can't get rid of all of them now. We can't get rid of all of these refineries. Then when we're in a position where we need refineries, then what? Now, like we're dealing with countries that was leveraging their position on oil against us, now we don't have that leveraging, and we have a benefit to it for America. And so we can send oil, that crude oil there. And we'll have to buy different levels of crude oil in other nations. So quite naturally, we need to keep our refineries open and keep them running for the American people and for the nation, for the military, and for different infrastructures that we have. What is your opinion? I'd like to hear about what your opinion is, because should we reduce the refineries already down from 42 to 7? Should we reduce them even further? Because you got to realize when the refineries all 42 was operating at a given time, the population wasn't at the level that it is at this present time in 2026. So think about that nature. We have more vehicles, more people on the road with vehicles, more military, bigger, robust military. We're actually growing our military from previous years, decades. Now we're gonna need these refineries to coexist and help our infrastructure build and develop for the protection of our nation and our sovereignty. Do you think we should do that or not? I say we should. What is your opinion? Leave a comment down below. I'd like to hear from you.